Hello and welcome to our fourth week of our stories during COVID-19. I hope this video finds you well and safe. And I know kind of personally and also from talking to people that people are really struggling with the lockdown at this point. And I think the length of time that we have already been in lockdown and the realization that our summer is going to be very different is a real challenge, and then keeping in mind the people who have been severely impacted by COVID-19, either themselves personally or family members, and just really keeping them in mind this morning as well, or this afternoon. So as always, we'll get stuck into the creative writing, because as we know, that is something that is really helpful to us during this time. So we talked about even last week that the idea of us all kind of connecting creatively, and I must say that when I do receive emails or people are chatting to me about the video and what they're writing, there's just a lovely sense of there being a community, and that's really lovely. So this week we are going to focus on flights of fancy, because that has been a theme in people's conversations during the week, this feeling of, I'd really love to be able to get away. And people may be remembering going on holidays last year, whether it was in Ireland or whether it was abroad, just that feeling of freedom and the enjoyment of being away from home. So I thought that we would do kind of flights of fancy this week, and in our imagination, perhaps go visiting different places. So as always, just grab yourself a pen and piece of paper, or if you have your laptop, and we'll get going. So as always, I like to begin perhaps with a poem. So I chose this one from Robert Louis Stevenson, who was a very famous writer, particularly of novels. He wrote Treasure Island, but he was also a travel writer. And this poem here of his that really kind of I suppose just shows us his absolute love of travel. So it's Swallows Travel To and Fro, and that's the title as well. Swallows travel to and fro, and the great winds come and go, and the steady breezes blow, bearing perfume, bearing love. Breezes hasten, swallows fly, towered clouds forever ply, and at noonday you and I see the same sunshine above. Dew and rain fall everywhere, harvests ripen, flowers are fair, and the whole round earth is bare to the sunshine and the sun, and the live air fanned with wings, bright with breeze and sunshine, brings into contact distant things, and makes all the countries one. Let us wander where we will, something kindred greets us still, something seen on vale or hill falls familiar on the heart. So, at scent or sound or sight, severed souls by day and night tremble with the same delight, tremble half the world apart. I really like that. So, where is your imagination bringing you? If you could travel in your mind anywhere in the world, where would you go? And just give yourself a moment to think about that. Is your imagination bringing you back to a memory? Or are you imagining somewhere that you've never gone before? If you could travel anywhere in your mind, where would you go? Are we talking, long way away, or perhaps you're closer to home? Maybe if you'd like to just travel outside of the 5K restriction, where would you like to go? I know when I was pulling this video together and I was asking myself that question, I was remembering that we had the privilege last year in early June to travel to Canada, and it was just an extraordinary trip. So my mind brought me there, and I was particularly remembering the Rockies, Canadian Rockies, that were just so incredible, and that's where my mind went. So where is your mind going when you ask yourself that question? Okay, so I just want you to take a moment and just let your mind wander as you're looking at this picture. And now, just without thinking, just write down the first 10 words or phrases that are coming to your mind. Just write them down. And as always, as we say with the writing, using your senses. Let your senses also come into play when you're imagining what's happening. Does it look like somewhere you've ever visited before? Certainly doesn't look like somewhere in Ireland. So what is this image evoking for you? So when you're writing that down with the 10 words or phrases. And you might like to, put those into a paragraph or perhaps create a poem from them. And another interesting thing you could do when you're looking at this, so, as the way the picture is, we are, we're almost as if we are walking down there. So if we first imagine it's us as we are walking down there, and then perhaps imagining if we were a small child, what would we be feeling if we were beginning to walk down there? And then those of us that are kind of lucky to be able-bodied, that's a very different experience than if somebody perhaps was in a wheelchair or was having difficulty walking. What might this particular scene evoke for them? So that's one of the things we can do with creative writing is put ourselves into the mind of somebody else. Perhaps imagine somebody who has just recovered from COVID-19 perhaps and is sitting here looking, what might be the thoughts that are going through their head? Or somebody who has lost somebody they loved to COVID, what would a scene like this perhaps evoke? So we're not just talking about our own emotions and experiences. Creative writing does help us to put ourselves into the mind of somebody else and try to think about perhaps their experience. So just give yourself a moment to do that. Okay. Now the next one. And I know I'm flying through these, so this is something obviously that you'll be able to go back and replay the video and take your time doing it. So here's the second scene that I chose, and a very different color palette, a very different experience. Just give yourselves a moment just to look at that and see what's coming up for you. And a writing prompt that might help you here, just to give you an example of another prompt, might be just to describe what, perhaps maybe pick out 5 different things that you see that your eye catches in this scene, and then describe it in great detail. So for example, those beautiful flowers, rather than just mentioning flower, they are pink flowers, and then if you look closely, there are 2 shades of pink. So one of them is more pale pink, and the deeper one I think we might describe as fuchsia color. And then they're small, so small flower, a delicate flower. So you can just see there already 4 or 5 words have come up even just looking at the flowers. So if you just look at and maybe choose 4 or 5 items or parts of the picture that speak to you, and then just describe them using as many descriptive words as you can. Where is your eye drawn to? I know that when I saw it first, definitely the flowers caught my eye, and the towels on the little line, and the terracotta roof tiles caught my eye as well. Images are really a very useful way of accessing our kind of creative language that we use, just where we are such visual creatures, and describing what we see or not. You could, you know, when I look at this picture, I wonder if I passed by this house and walked down the kind of cobbled street, what would I see next? So our imagination can bring us beyond simply the picture to think about where this picture might have been taken, and what is beyond that little shed to the left, and who lives in the house perhaps. So all of those things are maybe coming to your mind. So that particular prompt that I mentioned was just you know, pick 4 or 5 things and describe them in as many words as possible. But wherever your imagination or your fancy takes you, use this picture to dive in and create some words around it. And then we're going to just do one more. And this one's actually in Canada, and so it brought back some memories for me. But just again, it's a very different scene. So just allow yourself for a moment just to look at it, and just see what's coming to mind as you do. Just take your time. Okay. So in looking at this, the writing prompt that I thought of was just describe how this particular scene makes you feel. There's such a vastness to it. So I know that, you know, when I looked at it, it made me feel some of the excitement I felt when I visited last year. But also when I spent a little bit more time with it, I did feel that sense of tininess, of the insignificance of being human when you look at a scene that's this vast. And I kind of shivered a little bit when I looked at the tips of the mountains. So I felt a sense of awe and being inspired, but also just I felt kind of small as well. So that was just what came up for me when I looked at it. But what's coming up for you? So that's one of the things you could do. And then another thing you could do is just imagine yourself walking down into that valley. And what might you see? What would the grass feel like underfoot? Would it be springy and bouncy, or would it be heavy? And just there's always noises outside the door here, because like everybody in lockdown, there's lots of people in the house here working. So whether it's a dog pushing against the door, or one of my daughters is actually on the phone out there chatting in work. So I think it's the reality in lots of people's houses when there are people working away trying to get a day's work done. Okay, so there are three examples of places that your flights of fancy could take you. So wherever you went in your own mind with it, and just kind of going back over the tips again. The first one was just kind of those first 10 words or phrases that came to mind, and then when thinking of it in relation to your experience of looking out at the sea. But then what would it be like if you were a child, or what would it be like if you were able-bodied or disabled? What difference would that make in terms of how you experienced that picture? And then in the second one, the prompt was just to choose maybe 4 or 5 things that you could see in the scene, and use as many descriptive words as you could when you were describing them. And then we looked at in the prompt for this one was just imagining again what it would be like to walk down into that valley, but also what did it make you feel when you're looking at a scene like this? What images, not only images, but what emotions come up for us when we look at something like this? Okay. Now just over to you, and thanks to both Damien and Veronica who emailed me in, and a few people have said, "Oh, I'm going to email you in," but they're going to have to wait till next week now. So this is lovely, and again, Veronica sent a lovely email, and she's writing away. She's been using several of the prompts, so this is just a small piece from one of the pieces that Veronica sent in, and I think it really kind of resonated with where we're at today. So begin to see the opportunities to stay apart yet play your part in community and unity with nature, God, friends and family. Begin to ask for help and offer help. A crusade of generosity. And I just loved that line, a crusade of generosity. And I texted a friend this morning and said, "How are you doing?" And she just said, I'm struggling at the moment. And then I got a lovely email from somebody yesterday, just a really warm and welcoming email. And I was just thinking of that, the giving of help and the receiving, or the reaching out, asking somebody how they are, and then you get back, something as well. Just the giving and the receiving is lovely. So begin to ask for help and offer help. It's just lovely, a crusade of generosity. And our regular Damien emailed this lovely piece in, and he, as he said, just thinking about what it must be like for somebody who is being seriously affected by COVID-19, and he said, they can't leave their house, or they can't, or if they're in hospital, they certainly can't. So what they're looking out the window, and this is what he wrote. The passing clouds of elephants and chicks offer her some hope. The excitement on her ward talks of walks from 2K to 5, awakens and smiles. The trinity of aging, diabetes and COVID removed her legs, weakened her heart. Those passing clouds of elephants and chicks keep some dreams alive. And thanks for sending in that image as well. So you can see the words hope, expectation, laughter, joy, beauty, ambition, dreams and happiness. And there in the background, the elephant and the chick, the cloud in the shape of the elephant and the chick. So kind of a timely reminder that there are, for many people, that flight of fancy is, they can only just look out their window, and they don't have the same freedom even to go into their garden or go within what's now the 5K distance and go for a walk. I had the opportunity during the week there the Phoenix Park is within our 5K, and went up there with one of my daughters, and the deer were up there, and they were eating fruit from people's hands, and it was just so wonderful to be out in the sunshine and be able to do that up the park. Really, really nice. Okay, so that's the end of it for this week, and remembering, I'd love to hear from you, and if you've been using any of the prompts, just be fantastic for you to share those. And the email is here. Email me at anne@creativecoaching.ie. And I look forward to hearing from you. And in the meantime, stay safe and well. Now, thank you.